Derbyites, you've been begging for more Slugfests on the website, and here we are to deliver. Today we're talking about some various hot topics in readiness for the Oscar nomination announcement later this week. And I have with me today Charlie Bright, Daniel Montgomery, and Ralph Galvan, and we're talking first of all about those fifth slots in some of the various high-profile categories. Those fifth slots are always very tricky, and that's where the surprises are, and that's what I always look forward to seeing. So let's go straight to you first, Ralph. You talk us through what you think maybe one of those exciting fifth slots might be for Best Supporting Actress.
Yeah, really exciting just because the BAFTA nominations, as we know, just came out, and there was a surprise nomination in there to some, but a very deserving one with Renee Russo. And I think that kind of it shook up the supporting actress race. I mean, Jessica Chastain wasn't in there, and I think in part because she's campaigning, or can only really campaign for one apparently, but she's got two films that she's up for supporting: Interstellar and A Most Violent Year. And so Russo found a way to sneak up on there. And there's just this there's this swarm in LA, and I'm sure you guys notice it too, of passionate, there's a passionate Whiplash supporters, there's passionate Nightcrawler supporters, and I think the film built its momentum up at the right time, and I think she's going to get, I mean, we know Arquette's going to be in there, she's a front runner. We know probably Stone will get in, as well as Keira Knightley and Meryl Streep. I mean, she's Meryl Streep, so you can never count her out. But I think that fifth slot, instead of going to Chastain, is going to go to Russo. And yeah, that's what I got. What about you guys?
I moved Renee Russo into my fifth slot after BAFTA, and it's something that I keep looking for over the last several years. Especially since Best Picture expanded to up to 10 slots, we have seen the nominations across the top categories go to a smaller and smaller number of films. So, and I think it's because of the priorities that the voters have to make. If you're sitting at home and you have a pile of screeners to watch, what are you going to watch? What are your priorities going to be? And A Most Violent Year is not making waves anywhere except for Jessica Chastain's performance. I'm not confident it's going to be at the top of voters' piles. So what is? That makes me think maybe Carmen Ejogo with Selma, but that's been underperforming lately. And then Nightcrawler, they will definitely be watching. At this point, it looks like a pretty safe bet for Best Picture and even potentially Best Actor. So, knowing that they'll be watching that film, and that she's an overdue veteran, and that she's gotten a lot of praise for this performance, and now she's got that BAFTA nomination to prove that people are noticing her, I've got her tentatively right now in my fifth slot.
Charlie?
Oh God, it's a really tough thing to call, especially with you have A Most Violent Year just hasn't been measuring up in terms of the buzz being out there, and it really seems we would have thought, first of all, a couple months ago we would have thought that Laura Dern would have been a lock for this, for a nomination for Wild, but she hasn't shown up anywhere in the precursors. So now we're all kind of writing her off. Could she? I think she's a possibility to get in there. Because you can never count her out. She's been nominated several times, and then of course there's also Renee Russo, who's never been nominated. And the buzz, and like Daniel said, the buzz for Nightcrawler is just coming at the right moment.
Yeah, this category, unfortunately, to me, is a little boring because Patricia Arquette seems well out in front, and then you have Emma Stone in Birdman, who quite frankly, in my opinion, I'm not really sure she should be in the category, but that's another story. If Meryl Streep gets nominated for everything she does, I'm seeing Into the Woods today. I'll finally see that. I've been just avoiding it, but I'm going to see it today, and I'll kind of make up my mind whether she gives a good performance, just in terms of my own opinion. And then I have Laura Dern in my top 5 at the moment. I just can't seem to take her out. I just have a feeling that she will be the surprise. I know that seems so out of left field, but it's like that Maggie Gyllenhaal nomination that we were talking about earlier before we started recording. There's always something that comes out of left field that the Oscar voters seem to love that the other voters in other different groups don't necessarily vote for. So I don't know. I mean, I think Laura Dern was so good in The Fault in Our Stars. I think she deserves a nomination this year, and I'm just going to go out on a limb for her. And in my fifth slot, I have Keira Knightley in The Imitation Game, and I'm going to take her out because I just don't think she's as deserving as Rene Russo, and I think the Oscar voters will agree. And thank God for that BAFTA nomination, because when that happened, I was fist pumping and like, finally, some group has validated what so many of us have been saying, that Rene Russo, gives such a dynamite performance. To me, she's the highlight of the film. So, yeah, that's a really tough one. I can't think of anyone else in supporting actress that could break through. Does anyone have any other names of people that might do it? I mean, Daniel, you've mentioned Carmen I can't even say her name now, from Selma. But who else? I mean, Carrie Coon from Gone Girl would have been a great selection, but that movie has kind of fallen off the radar. Is there anyone else that has a hope in hell? I'll go to you first, Daniel.
Watch out for Naomi Watts. She has 2 films. She got the SAG nomination for St. Vincent, but I don't actually think that's her better bet. I think she has a really good, prominent role in Birdman, and she has been completely overshadowed this award season by Emma Stone. But we know the voters are going to be watching the film. We know they like Naomi Watts. She's been nominated twice before. We know especially the actors love this film because it did so well at the SAG Awards, and Naomi Watts got in there just for a different film. So, I really think that 5th slot, I will not be very surprised if it's Naomi Watts in Birdman.
Yeah, good call. That is a very good call.
Anyone? 2 words that were a big surprise for people back in 2007. Tilda Swinton for Snowpiercer.
Yeah,
she cannot be ruled out. It's hard to believe that she's still in her history. She's only been nominated for 1 Oscar, and that's the one that she won for Michael Clayton. I keep thinking that she's been nominated more times than that. But the performance of Snowpiercer is getting some attention, and it looks like this could make its way into a nomination, very possibly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Ralph, do you have any other names, or have we pretty much covered the field of likely?
No, I think Daniel had a good call on Naomi Watts, just because she is so liked, and I personally, after watching Birdman, I thought she was better than Emma Stone. As much as I enjoyed Emma Stone, I liked Naomi Watts better in the film itself. I love that you took out Keira Knightley. I hope to hell that happens, because I hated that movie with a passion.
I think Keira Knightley is in. Like, you guys
I know, I do too.
She's been nominated everywhere.
But
it's like a default nomination, isn't it? It seems like a default. Like, let's just tick off her name. The whole movie seems like a default kind of nomination, really. It's so sad.
I agree with you, Rob, in that it is kind of a boring category because Arquette is so far out front. But if Rene Russo gets in there, you guys think I'm a huge Gina Rodriguez and Uzo Aduba fan. If she makes it in there, I'm going to be annoying as hell pulling for Rene Russo.
Oh, no, I totally get it.
I thought she was great. I thought that dinner scene that she had between her and Jake Gyllenhaal in that restaurant was phenomenal for her. I just thought she was awesome, and I wish we were voters, because then Renee would win. GoldDerby Awards. Vote for her there.
I think we need. I want her to be nominated just so we can hear you go rant and rave about Rene Russo for the whole season. Like, you're hard on for Gina Rodriguez and Uzo Aduba. They'll just pale in comparison to what's going to happen when Rene Russo gets nominated. So let's all look forward to that. But
until Emmy season, when Tatiana gets nominated.
Of course, and then it'll just be. God help us all. But no, look, really. Guys, thanks for reminding me about Naomi Watts, because I keep forgetting about her, and to me she gave a more memorable performance in Birdman than Emma Stone did, and she should really be the default nomination in that category for that film, and she's not, and that's really odd. So that's something. And also, Tilda Swinton, she's one of the greatest actresses, really, of our time. That's a big call, but I think it's true. And she was in 100 movies this season, and she's so good in Snowpiercer. I'm just not sure if the Academy is going to love that film as much as many of us do. And
I'm not even sure they're going to watch it. I think they should,
yeah,
but
I'm not sure. They really should. It's a really hard sell. Like, I was trying to sell it to my family last night. They were saying to me, Rob, what movies should I watch? And I said, oh, look, there's a really good movie called Snowpiercer. Why don't you give that a shot? And they said, oh, what is it? I've never heard of it. And I was trying to explain it to them, and they were looking at me like, really? So, I think I gauge a lot of that kind of reaction from the, general everyday people. That's how I see a lot of Academy voters. They're all supposed to be intelligent. Not that my family are not intelligent, but they're all supposed to be, really knowledgeable film people, and a lot of them don't appear to be because they won't watch Snowpiercer, So anyway, this is a really interesting category. This is where the surprises are going to be. But let's move on to probably as usual, the most difficult category, the most competitive category, and that's Best Actor. It's always a tough one to call. You do get surprises from time to time. I remember a few years ago, Tommy Lee Jones was nominated for in the Valley of Elah, and that was really just completely out of the blue for me. It could happen again. We all thought it was pretty locked up about a month and a half ago, and then Jake Gyllenhaal started getting nominations, and so now he seems to be pretty much a lock. But yeah, there could be some surprises here. So I'm going to go to Daniel first. Talk me through Best Actor and what you think that fifth slot. First of all, tell me who you think the locks are, and then let's talk about the fifth slots.
We have this category is the most crowded because there are so many more talented male actors per se than anyone else, but because so many more prestige movies are made about men. So we get the Best Actor category every year is full, like 10, 15 deep, and this year we've got pretty much 8 men, I think, in trying to get into 5 slots. I think the only 2 people I can call 100% locks are Michael Keaton and Eddie Redmayne. After that, I think Benedict Cumberbatch is safe, but I don't know about everyone else. I think Jake Gyllenhaal and Ralph Fiennes are both getting in. And I'm sad because that means David Oyelowo falls out, and I don't want that to be true. I'd rather that be at the expense of Benedict Cumberbatch, personally, but if both of them gets in, there has to be a surprise snub, and I'm worried that with that film underperforming, it might be him.
Yeah, I think you're totally on the money. I agree with you completely, and I think Ralph Fiennes, people need to start to realize that that's probably happening, and good, because he's fantastic in the Grand Budapest Hotel.
And he hasn't been nominated in 18 years.
In a long time, a long time.
His co-star, Kate Winslet, won in The Reader. His co-star, Rachel Weisz, won for The Constant Gardener. This guy can't get back into the Oscar race for some reason.
No, people forget that, like English Patient and Schindler's List, right? They're the only 2 nominations he's ever received, I think. So it's been a long time for Ralph Fiennes, and he's been giving great performances for many years, and he's just particularly memorable in Budapest. So, Charlie, what do you think? Are you on the same page as Daniel?
Oh, I don't even know. I mean, I'm looking at my predictions right now, and I think I was looking at them the other day, and still my mind is just going 700 different ways at once. I'm looking and I'm saying to myself, I believe also that Keaton and Redmayne are the safest. I think Cumberbatch and Oyelowo are both pretty safe as well. It's just that 5th slot, and right now I have Steve Carell in that slot for Foxcatcher, and I hesitate to take it out because I really do think there's a very good chance for him to get nominated. But I mean, also I know I need to put Jake Gyllenhaal in there. I'm very strongly leaning towards putting Ralph Fiennes in there, especially because of how Grand Budapest Hotel has been doing so well across the board. This precursor season, it's been doing just insanely well, and that performance cannot be ignored. And then you also think of someone like Timothy Spall. The Oscars have loved the performances that are given in Mike Leigh movies with Imelda Staunton, Brenda Blethyn, and from Vera Drake. He could possibly get in there, and you also look at someone like, I don't know, Tom Hardy for Locke, or oh God, else was I thinking? Chadwick Boseman for Get On Up. Those would be very great nominations, and I can see this happening because it's so, there's so many possibilities here, realistic possibilities, and I'm just really not sure who to put in or out at this point.
And
Yeah.
Bradley Cooper also for
Yeah, American Sniper.
has to be
Exactly,
in the
yeah.
discussion. Yeah.
Like that
What would
film
be
has just
interesting
been.
is if what could be another interesting possibility is if Foxcatcher does get into this category, but it's for Channing, but if it gets in for Channing Tatum instead.
Yeah, that would be earth-shattering if that happened, I think. But
Yeah.
like American Sniper has really, really improved its odds in the last like 2 weeks, especially with some of the different guilds, and so it's not as invisible as I once thought it would be. This category is driving me crazy because why not have someone like Miles Teller in the mix, and you mentioned Chadwick Boseman and, even, I know, God help me saying this out loud, but even Ella Coltrane, we love Boyhood so much. Is he so terrible that to not even be in the discussion? Bill Murray from St. Vincent and Matthew McConaughey from Interstellar. Had Matthew McConaughey not won last year, surely he would be way more of a favorite in getting a nomination for Interstellar. As much whether you love or hate the film, his performance in that film is breathtaking. It's beautiful, great performance, and no one's talking about him. No one's talking about Ben Affleck in Gone Girl. I thought he was excellent in that, and he would be one of my nominations if I was voting in this category. So, Jack O'Connell in Unbroken. But you mentioned Timothy Spall, and I've had him in my top 5 since the beginning when Prediction Center opened at GoldDerby months ago. And I haven't taken him out yet, and I'm probably going to take him out today, and I'm really, really disappointed that I have to do that because I really wanted to kind of say, yeah, I've been picking him from the beginning, but I just can't see it happening anymore. And Mr. Turner has just not done as well as it should have, and with the BAFTAs especially, you would have thought of all the voting groups, they would have loved it, and they just didn't go there. So I'm not sure about Timothy Spall. So I'm going to take out David Oyelowo and take out Steve Carell and put in Jake Gyllenhaal and Ray Fiennes. I think that's the top. They seem like the top 5. Ralph, what about you? What do you think?
Well, I'm with you guys on the first two. I think Redmayne is a lock, just as much as Michael Keaton is. Cumberbatch, he's just so damn popular that I don't see how he can get left off. And Imitation Game has also been doing well at the guilds itself. In my 4th slot, though, I have Jake Gyllenhaal in my 4th slot because he's incredible in the film. It's my favorite movie of the year, so I'm a little biased, but I thought he's incredible in the film, and he just keeps getting nominated out of nowhere on all of these different major awards. I mean, he's kind of swept at least the nomination parts, and who knows? I mean, maybe we're underestimating him at the Golden Globes. Maybe he could pull off a shocker. But also because Nightcrawler is set in L.A., and to me it seems like Academy members love that it's set in their own backyard and they recognize all these things. I mean, even Tom emailed us that one time, that his apartment was featured. It's something that Jake Gyllenhaal walks into or where he lives, and it's a great performance. He did one of those transformation ones where he lost, like 40 pounds or whatnot, and with the fall of Steve Carell in Foxcatcher, nobody's mentioning him anymore. He got nominated in supporting at BAFTA, not even in lead, which is where he should have gone in the first place if you've seen the movie. It's just I think everything's lining up pretty well for and like Daniel said, Nightcrawler is now pretty much a lock to, or guaranteed at least, to get into the Best Picture race. So if you're going to nominate it for Best Picture, you've got to nominate its best performances. So I have him in 4th, and in 5th, right now I have Bradley Cooper in 5th for American Sniper. I emailed you guys the other day saying that, I don't know if I also know Marcus has it in there too because he's hearing the same things I am around here. Cooper's getting the best reviews he's ever gotten for any film that he's done, and he's already a 2-time Academy Award nominee. I don't think this guy's getting the credit that he deserves because he's known as the Hangover guy. But this guy's a 2-time Oscar nominee. That's nothing to throw out. And so with this, it's a Clint Eastwood film. We know how well Clint Eastwood films do uh, Morgan Freeman and Hilary Swank both won Oscars in a Clint Eastwood directed film for Million Dollar Baby, and it's timely right now. Everything's about war and whatnot, and so I've got Cooper in there based on buzz and based on his popularity with Oscar voters, it seems.
Clint Eastwood hasn't been as popular though in recent years with Academy voters. Ever since Million Dollar Baby, I don't really think he's really had. Well, he did have Letters from Iwo Jima get in, and him get in for directing that, but. Other than that, Invictus, with nominations for Morgan Freeman and Matt Damon, those are the only ones I could think of. He's had a
Changeling with Angelina Jolie.
Yeah, Angelina Jolie
got nominated. That's right.
Gran Torino, I think as well.
But no, that did not get in.
It didn't. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, his performance did not get nominated. So I think I don't know. I'll just let my various ohs and ahs speak for themselves.
Well, I think it's a really good call actually. If Bradley Cooper can do this, if he can get nominated again, I mean it's probably not unprecedented, but 3 times in a row, or for his 3 last performances to be nominated by the Academy, that's pretty amazing for someone who started out on Alias and on ABC and the TV series, and he's really come a long way. I haven't seen American Sniper yet. I'm probably seeing it this afternoon or tomorrow. And I know there's some controversy about it. I've been ignoring that, so I'm not even sure what it's all about. I hope that doesn't make a difference, but I think that's going to be a surprise package, that film. I think there'll be a few nominations coming its way on Thursday. So if we've got nothing else to talk about specifically about Best Actor, I thought we could just change pace a bit, because Daniel first mentioned David Oyelowo from Selma, and that film's come up a couple of times. Let's talk about that film, because it's really causing quite a stir, and a lot of the Oscar bloggers who seem to make the most noise at this time of year about everything, just so that they could get page hits and so forth, are really starting to talk about Selma and about whether or not many of these awards groups are ignoring it based on it being really from a African American perspective. And some people say that that's not the case, it's just not a very good film. And I think it's an interesting debate. Lyndon Johnson and all that stuff. There's a lot of different arguments that we can make and talk about with respect to Selma. And of course I'm going to go to Daniel first, because he has put it so eloquently in some of our really interesting emails that we send to each other pretty much every day. Daniel, I'd really like you to give us your views on how Selma is being treated by various awards groups and how it will do this week with the Oscars.
In terms of how it's been treated by awards groups, I'm sort of not 100% sure, because it's so hard to tell. I mean, early on when it was snubbed at SAG, it seemed like that was an obvious explanation. They didn't get the screeners in time. That happened to Django Unchained. That happened to Wolf of Wall Street. Both of them came back in a big way later on. And then the Producers Guild didn't nominate it, and I'm like, okay, maybe it's still a screeners thing. This movie was really late to even have screenings of the finished film. It was really on the wire there. So okay, maybe it'll rebound again. And then it wasn't eligible for the Writers Guild because of the Writers rules. They disqualify so many films, so that wasn't really a telltale sign. BAFTA was the time when I started to get worried, and again, I don't know, did they just not see it in time? What is going on there? Because it did as well as we expected at the Golden Globes. It did as well as we expected at Critics' Choice. But now that these industry groups are starting to chime in, it's barely on the radar, and that makes me wonder: is it just a sleeping giant, or is it that late to the party that the Oscars are going to give it all these nominations that it hasn't gotten yet? And if not, why? It's critically acclaimed. It's about a heroic historical figure. It's a very accessible film. This is catnip to awards voters, and I'm just worried that the perspective from their point of view will be that we did sort of the diversity black thing last year, and that they'll feel like this is somehow redundant, even though it's a completely different story. And they do redundant all the time. They've got 2 British geniuses that are likely to be nominated for Best Picture and Best Actor. So, you know, if that's not redundant, this isn't redundant. So I'm worried for it. I don't think hope is lost. I really want to see picture, director, and actor nominations for this film.
Ralph, what's your view?
My view. I think, you know, I mean, somebody on the board had mentioned that they have a BAFTA friend who didn't receive a screener for Selma. So I think it's really more of it's been the reason it's been ignored is more because people just haven't had access to it. I know they've had screenings all throughout here in LA, but a lot of I mean, if you always just figure I'm gonna get a screener, so I'm just gonna wait for the screener. It's not something I need to see on the big screen. It's not Interstellar. It's not anything like that. And if you don't get it, you have nothing to go off of. And I think it'll still like I emailed you guys. I think it'll still do decent at the Oscars. It'll still get a Best Picture nomination. It'll probably still get possibly a Best Actor, even though we're kind of shaky right now on that. But and also I just think people are fatigue or not, whatever you want to call it. People are free to just not nominate or vote for it because they just don't think it's one of the best films of the year. I mean, there are a lot of films that we mentioned that we think are great, and some people won't. I mean, I wouldn't make it a blanket if it doesn't get nominated. I wouldn't make it a blanket huge thing that it's because they did the thing last year, the whole 12 Years a Slave last year, that they just got tired and are not going to do it again this year. I think that's all full crap in my opinion. And you have, like I mentioned, you have Birdman in there that's not, it's going to get a sweeping amount of nominations for some reason. And I just think you should just move on to Charlie.
Charlie, your view, because I'm dying to have a go at this as well. Charlie, what do you think?
Again, it's a really tough thing because we don't know exactly what is contributing to some of this, especially with the Producers Guild. That one really baffles me. You would think, and BAFTA, BAFTA is so just loves to nominate their own people, the British people. And here you had a chance to get nominations for David Oyelowo, who plays Martin Luther King, and a supporting actor nod for Tom Wilkinson, who plays Lyndon Johnson in the movie. So it was really surprising. I'm not sure if it'll translate into a lack of a nomination. The fact that they're now up to 10 films in Best Picture makes me kind of secure that that's going to happen. And I think that there's been enough going on about it here in the States, at least, that it should be all right. If it doesn't, I do think a racial component might need to be looked at, but I don't know if it would be the overall thing. It might be because of the studio not getting those screeners out in time and not getting those screeners out.
Yeah, as a foreigner watching this from afar, I've got to say that it really baffles me that this discussion seems to come up every year in America, and not even just about the Oscars. It seems to come up a lot. Like most people are talking about Selma and how Selma has been snubbed or snubbed. I'm doing this because I'm not sure whether it has or not, because it's a black movie, and it just seems to be an issue in the States, for obvious reasons, an issue that people talk about because of, for whatever reason, because of past injustices and socioeconomic reasons and so forth. But I think there's a point to it. There is a point. It's a black movie. It's a movie from a black woman's perspective. She's a director. It's about Martin Luther King, and it's about that period of history. It's about civil rights. It's not Birdman, which is about a crazy actor who thinks, he hears his Birdman character in his head. Even though that's by a Mexican director, this is a movie about people of color. It's a bit more than that, and I think there is a point that it is being ignored a little because a lot of the voters in various groups that kind of movie doesn't speak to them. And this is just my theory, speaking as an Australian, because we also have our own racial and diversity issues here, and they're very similar to what you guys have over there. And if we had an Aboriginal film like the film that was submitted to the Foreign Language Committee for Australia as an Aboriginal Aboriginal film, and no one here has seen it. No one cares about it. No one wants to talk about it because it's an Aboriginal film, and it's because it doesn't talk to me as a white person like it talks to that Aboriginal guy. And so I get it. I think that is a point. I don't think it's just been ignored because it's not a very good film or because they didn't get screeners. Because if they really wanted to see it, they would see it and they'd vote for it if it was a really, really good film. And I'm really disappointed that Ava DuVernay may not be nominated. I was hoping that she would, because as far as I'm concerned, putting the African American thing aside for a moment, I really care about women directors being nominated more often. It's really important to me personally, for whatever reason, that I see more diversity for women in that category, and or just generally as directors. It's such a sausage fest. It really bothers me that Angelina Jolie and Ava DuVernay are probably not going to be nominated. We're going to see another 5 guys again. I'm hoping that Selma at least makes it into Best Picture, but I doubt David Oyelowo is going to get nominated. And I think it's just going to be Best Picture, probably Best Screenplay, and maybe a couple of other technical categories, and that'll be it, and it won't win a thing. And there'll be a lot of discussion about, once again, an African American film or a film about African Americans from an African American perspective. I think there has to be something to be said that it is being slightly marginalized because it doesn't speak to the majority. That's just my opinion, and opinions are like assholes, right? Everyone's got one, so that's good. We can all have an opinion.
Just
I think something.
I remember this sort of happened last year. When you had, it was sort of an amazing year in terms of that you had multiple prestige movies, by and about people of color that were in the discussion. 12 Years a Slave, The Butler, and Fruitvale Station. And The Butler was, it got fine reviews, but it was on par with The Help, which opened the same week, made the same amount of money the previous year, and earned Best Picture nominations. But at the Oscars, 12 Years a Slave, it seemed to be their token, and they decided we don't need to vote for the Butler, we don't need to vote for Fruitvale Station. So I don't think this is a new issue, and I just hope it's a screener thing, and that the Oscars, give it the nominations it has been getting at Golden Globes and Critics' Choice, and that if the quality of its reviews indicate that it should get.
I think it is a screener thing. I mean, it seems to be the biggest excuse for all of these people missing out. The Producers Guild, I will agree, that was kind of baffling that it didn't make it in there. But I don't know. I mean, it also, it's not really comparable to 12 Years last year, because 12 Years last year had tremendous buzz and tremendous box office, and it just seemed like Selma came a little late to the game. And when it did come out of the gates, it was in limited release, and it had great reviews for its acting and great reviews for the supporting acting and all that. But it never really gained the momentum from that, because it was so slow to come out and so slow to be seen, and so slow to gain buzz, that I think tie that in with the lack of screeners, it could be the reason that it's not really performing as well as everybody thinks it should. But at the same time, I think it'll be back at the Oscars just because it's too important to ignore.
You'd also, that was one thing I was going to bring up, is the idea that possibly, that some Oscar voters who may not think it deserves a nomination would put it on their nominating ballot anyway, because they are afraid of, like, the PR backlash against them, for not nominating this movie if it were to get there.
Yeah, that's a good point, because although I was just saying a lot of the voters are old white men, and who wouldn't vote for a gay film or a black film, a lot of them are bleeding heart liberals as well, who will want to vote for films that make the Academy look more progressive. So there is a dichotomy there. We'll see what happens, because I think Selma's a really interesting issue. Before we go, quick one. Let's talk about surprises, something really out of left field. For me, all of my focus is on Best Director. It's a very interesting category this year. There is a lot of no names or directors that no one's really heard of, Chazelle, Tilden, Marsh, to name just 3, who will probably maybe be nominated. DuVernay could do it. Angelina Jolie, one of the biggest stars in the world, might be nominated, as mentioned earlier. And so that's a fascinating category. Iñárritu and I'm missing a couple, obviously, but well, Linklater, who was probably the favorite. Is there a director out of left field that we'll see, or can you perhaps maybe think of another surprise that we should look forward to later this week? I'll go to you first, Daniel.
Well, we talked about fifth slots a little earlier, and I think one of the more interesting surprises we could see is in supporting actor, which is one of those unique categories this year where you have four solid locks, it looks like. You know, J.K. Simmons, Edward Norton, Ethan Hawke, Mark Ruffalo. They've gotten in everywhere. And then there's that fifth slot. I mean, I'm not convinced voters are going to prioritize the judge. I'm not convinced that many of them are going to watch or like Inherent Vice and nominate Josh Brolin, and that film isn't expected to do very well elsewhere. I'm not, you know, I thought Tom Wilkinson would have it in the bag, but again, the Selma thing has been very, you know, hit and miss this award season, so it's hard to say. So that fifth slot could be interesting. We could see potentially, because we know the Oscars go their own way, you know, maybe they'll put Steve Carell there, you know, downgrade him there because they have available space there, and he's falling short potentially in Best Actor. So even if he gets enough votes for both categories, he might actually have more for Supporting Actor. Or we could see, you know, Christoph Waltz for Big Eyes. It's sort of a divisive performance, but it's a performance that, you know, it's huge. It's outlandish. It's a lead performance in the supporting category, which usually helps. And the Academy obviously loves him. So that fifth supporting slot is the one where I think we could see that weird, out of left field Maggie Gyllenhaal style nomination.
Charlie?
You know, I was just going to bring up that very point. You know, I do not, you know, Duvall's performance in The Judge is nothing but the performance itself, but you know, at least his standing right now in terms of, you know, his ability to get nominated. It reminds me, what was it? Just like 4 years ago, he had that movie Get Low, and I think he was nominated at least two of the three major precursors for Best Actor, and ended up losing out on a nomination. So I don't think that can be ignored. I would say, you know, Tom Wilkinson is one to watch out for. I would have said Martin Short for Inherent Vice, but I don't think that's going to happen at all, considering how the film is being so polarizing. You know, I think it's just going to be Duvall by default, but also directing is another one. And I would also say, again, watch out for Mike Lee. I think, you know, since it is directors nominating directors, that's something that could definitely happen. He got a very big surprise nomination. What was it, 10 years ago for Vera Drake, and I think he could do that again. And I'm very sure he's going to get nominated again for screenwriting. Yeah, Ralph.
My surprise nomination is going to come probably from the weakest category, I think, which is Best Actress. I think Amy Adams is going to get back in there for Big Eyes. Tim Burton has a pretty good track record of getting, you know, his actors in there. She's still Amy Adams. She's a 5-time Oscar nominee. She'll probably be like a 100-time Oscar nominee until they give her the honorary award when she's 100 years old. But you know, I think she can still sneak in there. And then also, I think my surprise nominee will be also on the actor side with Bradley Cooper. The more I think about it, how he's now able to campaign a little more, which he wasn't before, which is why the American Cyber buzz is just building now. Because he's on Broadway in The Elephant Man, and he's getting rave reviews there as well. Which is, you know, people now know he's doing stage and doing excellent work on stage, and now he's got a film out where he's also getting rave reviews. It's like, it just seems like things are lining up pretty well for this guy at this point. So, yeah, those are my two.
Well, yeah, we didn't talk much about Best Actress, probably for good reason. It's a really boring category again. Just this whole Oscar season seems like it's one of the off years, to be honest. But I would like to see Jennifer Aniston in there. It wouldn't be a big surprise. She's already received some precursors, but I just think it would be really cool to see one of the friends nominated at the Oscars. It's just, these are the things that I'm holding on to for dear life. Otherwise, I will fall asleep at this Oscar season. So that's this stuff that I'm looking forward to. I want to see Snowpiercer nominated in some categories. I think that'll be a bit of a surprise, and it would be a really great surprise nomination to see Under the Skin nominated in original score. So that's where I'm going in terms of what I'm looking forward to. Thank you so much, guys, for your time today. Let's reconvene and rediscuss as we see the nominations roll out later this week. Thanks, guys.